by being in sync with its feeling. The third night in the cave, after many third nights in the cave, also known as the incubator of healing. These tools are toys now. When he lived next door to heaven, he promised to keep the noise down. The soul, the sun, a whole in one. There was never anything to worry about. The sky quakes ecstatic as the sound of his voice makes the clouds move like cymatics. So take shelter. Your actions can have ramifications that may not ripple out for generations, helter skelter. And by then you may well be dead. If you're lucky, you'll see that the seed of your past self was worth far more than money. For what is the price of change that redirected a world from lunacy to sane? He knew they were sick when beneath the gossamer arose within him that unique sense of nausea and the breath. This also applies to death. Remember properly, foresight, not prophecy. In silence, the monks yell, Euro. Music as an honest expression of oneself. Plural. A guttering flame, as Act 3 and 1 are blending. But what were the costs for a new start in the Hollywood ending? There was a lot to handle the day of death, heart attacks, Lana. But we pulled through, and that night slept warm and good. The night before, spent with the old devils of lore. The membership card and shirt, left behind the bar and lost. The lost love of life, appeared with a friend in tow, but never returned, and the heart never did glow. But what is love? Fireworks or stability? Minimalism or filigree? And for all these versions of beautiful around, does one's love constrict or abound? The wedding was a test, exceeded. We walked away from the parts of ourselves unneeded and left the path home littered with our ghosts of old, ready to burn up like coal. And what to do with this damn thorn? But all was good considering. Regarding life in the hermitage, abstinence was winning. The general rule concerning this show is, if you can't make it out, you don't need to know. Eden reclaimed through the desert of woes. This grass underfoot was once sand in the toes. The terrible truth is this, all the secrets you hold will be revealed in the mist. However long that may be, the lucky die before the shame, but not the majority. One would take the king's head and his daughter's hand in old liaisons, and when talking of superpowers, don't disregard patience. But in the battle of the scythe and the sword, the old was dealt an injury it could not afford. The atoms lay smashed, talking of scythes. The wake of his death was as troubled as his life. The mind wandered back to when the paths forked neath unsure feet. But now here he She was the sister of ale, so her brother was drunk. In sobriety they embraced, and the result was love. Ah, love. That long abandoned concept, found not in another person, but in what one was always in love with. The sounds of hell still pumped from below, but to be fair, he was still on the road home. The past echoes. A wise woman once whispered into her dying husband's ear, "You're still obsessed with the thing that got you here. Through birth and to death, a lifetime of worshipping what is between my legs." She had never said it, but she might as well have been beheaded for all he cared. The digital war made cave people out of those who had never lived without it. When the online world went off, the dark ages were rerouted. At the feet of Shiva, the huddled masses lay curled. The computerized war capable of destroying worlds. But ask yourself, which worlds hold your interest? Which do you love and which would you not care if they were obliterated? Years ago the hermit learned to achieve the life he dreamed. It seemed askew, but one must be friendly only to a limited few. The majority deserve nothing more than they get. But those who seek to change are afforded glimpses of the gifts. Thy name be hallowed. The nothing seek for nothing. The replicants seek to emulate. The naive seek the spotlight. The wise seek the shadows. The abusers were unaware of our return, bigger and stronger than we were when they abused us. And if the guilt they had been carrying was not enough upon ever-weakening shoulders and a constitution of rot, then they were unprepared for the hell we would release upon them. Denied Valhalla, not out of revenge, but as an act of balance. So take these words as the elixir of life, and take note of the name, for home he had arrived. Consider that orgasm the Big Bang, the birth of the universe of I. Language and words, the power and sin of it. When prone to exaggeration, just rein it in a bit. The art of doing nothing for the sake of creating. It's the season at this time of year when it's best to relax and take it easy. The tightrope walk of the artist who's never fell like hell is that of an abstaining monk and an outright Jezebel. Knowing society's side-eye, let's stitch our lips with sutures, whispers, but the inside you speaks to me from the future. To be stronger than all, one must surrender to sickness. So take that end of year illness as an early gift for Christmas. The riddle fountain which beckoned lament. The hidden mountain, the second descent. In those times of distress, when unsure and unsteady, please believe that everything you need will show up when it's ready. It always does and always did. So when you feel life leave and wither, remember that even the earth is reborn as spring after the winter. The years of poverty, when you screamed of the oppressors, hang 'em. Now you shake their hands and thank them as they give you the keys to the inner sanctum. Not winter kings nor summer queens, but autumn, spring, and the micro seasons in between. That's us. He hoped one day they would see that everything was as they have always wished it would be. Regarding aliens, here's what he learned. The sea is space, but upon the earth. Behold these hands that have dealt death, and warn those of curious mind how their actions will end. It has been well documented the fate of those who go against the boatman Charon. Madness, death, wombs left barren. The end of year brings with it an influx of dreams, life through the blender of sleep to be seen. The skin wears a film of eternal youth and plays many movies spanning a millennia of truth. Those who cannot accept the gifts of others, oh Lord, are not ready to accept the gifts of the gods. If you are still dressing up to look like it, you are not it. Remember what they say. If you are going to go, go all the way. Soon the day will come when there is no need for the hats, and that's that. Born to devastate. When the real power of gravity is harnessed, then the human body can finally levitate. Dark deaths and light lives. The more investments one has in the world, the more they will fret at its imminent demise. A buffering sky, a digital war. Best to make friends with the machines now, therefore. As the gurus fall, one must know those secrets were never meant to be taught out in the open. If an addition could be added to the map, for time is fleeting, the hero returning home and the hero departing, meeting, and so be it, and may it benefit seers, and those heroes who venture where mere mortals fear. As the storm raged outside, inside was calm, sobering. Although the lingering illness sang in ears, I'm still not over it. Here stands the one-man band with piano hands. Empires are not built only on blood, but on deceit and lies. Language is the weapon of birth and that which dies. Do you break the fingers or shake the hand of the one who molded the monster of you? And if you link up all the scars, what would be the words written on your arms? We are one of the same, known by different names. It's not a choice, but without us, the world is without voice. It's the days of the low sun. No need to examine the scarcity of vitamin D becoming the figure and face of famine. The misconstruement of language by those blind by vice. The good not only die young, but twice. The hall of Ulster was being cleaned, for the whole of Ulster to be redeemed, for the prodigal son whose visit soon, live from his living room. The lingering illness still, energy levels minus, stiff joints, sore stomach, and now an aching sinus. God help us, if he can find us, for these dark mornings muddle the sight like a blindness. When writing the name exactly, please, it's all caps except the B. Thump, thump, thump went the devil's music beneath him. But he could subject him to sounds more horrendous than he ever knew, if needed to. As we come to the end of the year, of that time of the year, the last 3 of the year at the end of the year, every indiscretion applied by anyone, no matter what size, is brought to mind and toiled over. The red woman was more brown, the blue girl was more woman, he was more hermit. Truth led to the shore, where upon the water sat a boat named Discernment, and on that he sailed, knowing the power of truth, but also its misuse, for certain, as too much can kill a person. And here lies the powerful lot. If truth be a key, then don't break it off in the lock. For the door was open all along, though we couldn't show. We were just curious to see how far you were willing to go. Sort of the same as Isaac and Abraham, but both of them are you. The devil whispered, "Miss me." He reminded himself that he never made it to the whiskey. Not with that stomach, too risky, too bloody, too messy. So in a sense, all that pain was a blessing. And what of the thorn? Surely in time its reasoning too will be shown. What is life? The question asked upon me. To make something out of something that could mean nothing or everything or anything one wanted it to be. Light, dark, day, night, sun, moon, me, you, me, us, 1, 2, 3. When you're going to Mount Olympus to feast, remember to keep your dog on a leash. It's not hard, woke up rock hard so soon, to carve the perfect statue of an acorn in a rose bush. Behave yourself to save us, and be considered Michelangelo's David. And before long you'll be full with the food of Zeus and Hera. Don't seek. Remember the time of 9 weeks, 63 days. Anyway, there's no more chickens to lay your eggs. The vibe is patience. The time is hibernation. Strong like Hulk. The ruler of winter is Jajuzel, also known as the monk. The cursed lunacy. If it is a test to say no or a gift of opportunity, to the heath, the magical world of the West, the rational rooted in the East, to the hearth, the house of the Father Heaven, the house of the Mother Earth, to the haven, the railway tracks between dream and awaken. Like lyrical song, one must read the proper scripts to par the invisible story along. In conversation, Of course it is, fool. The worst pain an artist feels is the departure of the glorious muse. I can vouch. Ask Orpheus too. Ouch. One may think it's taken longer than they had in mind, but they're prompted to remember the saying, all in good time. A mystery to men, seemingly without allegiance, he kept his hair and singing voice in the style of ancient Egypt. Perfect vision, but once he couldn't see straight. Forwards he was a shelter, backwards he was a sea snake. Even the living can be dead ghosts. The travelers move through the world while its inhabitants are stationed at their wayposts. Be mindful that the words you direct to others do not come back and curse yourself. For how easy it is for us to fall prey to our own trappings only to find the captured beast is us. And they said he would never sing again. He was thrown to the crows only to become king of them. Heaven's alive, and now he has come back for their eyes. All these tests seem so rude, alas. But seen another way, this segment in life could be called Speak Your Truth When Asked. Let's be clear. I talk off the mad king when I say it's that time of year. For an extortionate fee, create the chaos, then order it accordingly. Let the fearmongers fears thee none. While fretting over the horrors of the world, take note of what realm you're resting your gaze upon. Log 131224. The majority of humans are little more than incubators and inseminators, bar a small percent of artists and innovators. Black Christmas descended with enough anger to make a liver leak. But one must learn how to create tension, then smash it to smithereens. The cliffhanger. Become rage amid anger, but let not your fists touch another unless you want it back double, worse. A subtle verse will do, as long as afterwards you have transmuted the rage into something new. Fight or flight, split or wait. When all else is lost, at least sit up straight. It may seem bad to some, but he had battled as many devils as he'd had to become. Although I write to my own echo now, in time will come fascination. So when it does, keep in mind, dear reader / listener, that I am but a mere creation and not the creator. A tool for tales to be told, a mirror for myths to be known, and the lineage continues as so. From great pain comes great art, I heard he enthused, while trying to understand that fragile beauty in the eye of the abused. A little spoke of joy for those who lived in decadence is after sobriety the solidity of excrement. Either ancestral or through self-discovery, we use the same sums. But how much more bodies must one exhume to know themselves and where they came from? Regarding the stool, oh listeners, consider this day a flag in the road on the journey home, Odysseus. When one turns their face to above, don't misconstrue loneliness for love, nor love for lust, and the praying on the knees for wealth will only leave them broke. As disruptive as the mad king can be when he visits, The gifts he leaves behind when he goes can be tremendous. He departs soon upon the full moon. Past life, archetypes, seer visions sowing seeds. They weren't stories he was writing, but books of poetry. And now he would know it, that throughout times he was known as the poet. I have alluded to the journey home before. When you ask from where, I answer war. Yes, sire, what will become known as the battles of Nivea. I'll make you a deal, for these words don't come for naught. Keep me well fed, and I'll talk while I walk. And the more that you feed me, the more I will say. For many tales I can tell, from the 16-year war of heaven and hell. I know all the great heroes and villains involved, the battles they fought, the riddles they solved. A taster for you, yes, it's true. The great hero El Capitan, the blue witch he knew. When he confided in her, she permitted him to touch the magic inside of her. But at what cost? Well, how about the great spell she would cast, that one day would save the hero from that hell at last? That night in collusion, the flames could not be doused, when they killed the red witch and burned her house down. That being said, these tales now are worth more than bread. So the more my pockets swell, the more I will tell. Oh well, I must be on my way. I like to walk while others talk, and new dogs bark, and to arrive in new towns as morning breaks dark. Behold the earth, the seer murmured with a cautious sigh. But beware the fearmongers, who will have you believe the end is always nigh. Regarding I, as it has been noted, combine reporter and artist, and you get poet. Drafted to the war, but not as a warrior, but a recorder and recounter of the gruesome and the glorious. The heroes die early in flames in return for eternal fame. We live long in the shadows for their stories to be well explained. That night in the house of the mother, with headache and crooked neck, upon inspection in a mirror, 2 pupils in the right eye looked back. All right, that being the eye of long vision, we'll call it foresight. He once met the magician when he felt he was floating in outer space. He was placed in what was called the cowl and was brought back to earth via the pain. He honored the magician in song and sung about him deep. The magician whispered in his ear, "The cowl and the technique are now yours to keep." As well as El Capitan in the Great War of the Fighting Brave, we must remember another courageous hero known as Honey Nightingale. He who sailed the stormy seas, seeking and searching along for the sequence of notes and melody known as the sacred song. He who was chosen by the goddess herself as a kid, age 10 and primary 7 with a kiss. The goddess was known as the Angel Alpha, or the AA. And how Honey missed her, but years later he would meet her sister, As so, the angel Omega, also known as the AO. To test the strength of one's tower and what would make it topple, a man once vowed abstinence and moved into a brothel. Upon leaving now, an acorn nestled neath, and so was revealed the truth behind the fig leaf. As heroes return, with questions they are besieged, gifts are laid upon them, admirers drop down to their knees. The blind cling to it, but the world is never more dangerous than when one brings a child into it. So make what moves you. The source material is the past created in the present for the benefit of the future. Honey Nightingale, much mistaken for a girl in his youth, but a warrior he became when his hair it was took. His mother's tear-stained face as she sent him off to war, knowing her son knew not what horrors lay in store. Her name was Seraphina Firewater, a lady of beautiful finesse, bless her royal title being Queen Vanessa. How about the feared warlord himself, known as Little Voice, more concerned with blood than money, once lover of Seraphina and suspected father of Honey. The fates weave the lives of all, although the men of the hour are under the impression that they hold the power. Into their daughters' eyes they look, and every woman they have mistook stares back, and every indiscretion upon female flesh of which they are guilty, the men of the world will do upon their daughters without pity, defenseless, just as they had done upon someone else's. The blood on your hands, the mouth that slathers, or rather, the sins of the fathers. We know now what we didn't know then. If one can return from the other world with sanity intact, they can survive anything this world can throw at them. Some sicknesses can make one feel permanently ill. Even though the mad king had departed, his wake stirred up disturbances still. To be happily free requires some examining, please. So who will be the one to sever the branch that is diseased from the family tree? There were no vaster than him in such words. He was once afraid of others' dreams, so he became the master of them, in fact, of both worlds. She was named as an oath of God, in a lineage of cursed seamen. But she preferred the diminutive form which implied freedom, which he took, along with her powers to reproduce. Duplicitous. This could be the origin story of a villain, or possibly a song here, but which one of them is it? That's in the wrong here. So it is true. Even in the shadow of the Mad King, small discrepancies grew. The dear ant who shared the same main syllable ever aglow. Holding her hand, he quietly said, "We're more alike than they'll ever know." By now, we should be aware that art creates the future, way by. But I wonder about the outcome of the humanization of the canines on a feline-ruled planet. Amalthea watched over El as he hid inside the hut, while Nicodemus thought he was trapped inside his guts. Nico who? Dear listener, one must have patience. Nicodemus, the ancient demonic lord who ruled for generations. The pockets must be lined, sire. if you wish to hear more about the battles of Nevaeh. That night many cards were sent. One was vital. The wise river of Venus addressed hers to Michael, her current infatuation from before. In the house of the father, female snipers with guns galore. Thankfully, the use of micro-technology was deployed to clean out the sanctuary. Insurgents, now breath and dust particles, could be set with magic to eradicate the urgings. Around 6 soldiers were causing the strife, but once on our side, they give gifts for a more comfortable life. It may seem insane, but when the Mad King has gone, the Mad King visits to prove he is gone again. This is how he got his name. Of energy, the battle can zap an exorbitant amount. But if the devil is dead, then why are you still carrying his corpse about? I suppose you should laugh. Inside him, the voices of an over-enthusiastic child and a sociopath. Regarding dimensions, if one can be so trite, the 3rd is your old world, the 4th is the journey, the 5th is your new life. Outside, a light breeze becomes more intense. The best stories are the ones where a character reminds you of someone else. But who? You? Oh, much appreciated, sir. Grab a chair or sit on the floor. Order drinks and I'll recount some more stories of war. The silent darkness is only for the chosen few. If one delves deep enough, they're bound to wash up in shores anew. Before you can say, land is sighted, you'll find yourself enrolled in the rites of Dionysus. In the labyrinth of life, your past has grown beastly. One must face the horrors of themselves, lest the maze become unceasing. A creature roars, with a voice that sounds like yours. Quick, run your sword through the Minotaur's neck before you do it to yourself. Gotcha. From the shadow of the Mad King emerged the old man, and the world slowed to his pace. A map of misery creased his face. He creaked and groaned, by Christ have patience. And we're meant to be in the mood for celebration. With the old man's blanket over us, it's hard to move from the heaviness. But at the same time, we're expected to attend all these gatherings. How vexing, insane. It's obvious why this time of year it's so popular for so many to exit the game. Over. Restart level. The old man pulls a card from his pocket. On it, an image of the devil. The shame. Well, they are one of the same. Count yourself lucky. You only have to listen to his mumblings and weren't born under him. The scrape of chains in the house he haunts. The hidden blade, best to be left in darkness with one's thoughts to show you are unafraid. The funny thing is, the chains were loose enough to step out of any time. What sorcery is this? Ah, time. Now I remember, or rather, that was the old man's nickname when he was a father. Did we speak of games? As he seems to be the master. Of it? Of what? Of life? Just don't mention the black robe and the scythe. A curious observation. Then we'll meet next. The first thing people do when they've made it is get their teeth fixed. With all this change and timelines merging anew, you'll find many people you know are actually other versions of you. In the silent darkness, delving alone, whispers of velvetone. Avoid charismatic leaders and heavy lifting. Beware of groups, but if found amongst one, leave swiftly. We demand an apology who give the majority access to the technology. For by that point, the carbon paper is so worn out, only a mutation could be born out. The damned seeking their fame. The creator hangs his head as atrocities are done in his name. Hard times we fended through. On the road home, the accumulated injuries needed tended to. A good place to begin when a new dawn breaks is to make friends with brawn and brains. See if this scenario rings a bell. The hero escapes hell, the end, only to have to return to save his friend. In the house of the mother that night, he painted her feet white, but practiced caution, not to get any on his sheets with great might. Reiterate, literally but quietly, expectations will only bring misery and possible anxiety. He knew not luck nor trust. When he closed his eyes, he was haunted by the succubus. Or was it? Who comes? You give or take. Ah, those blissful morning hours before the world awakes. When the artist lived with the monks, he found his creative spirit lessened the more he abstained from desirous obsessions. Although now in control of that once raging dragon, it seemed the muses themselves had just left him hanging. Try as he might, he could not create, until even his title he wore like a dead weight. He sought out some guidance and was summoned at once. The head monk, he told him, "Sir, you are not one of us. Although you are good at the practices we do and pass all our tests, you must dedicate your life to what you do best. The idea of pure has been misconstrued, so sir, please fall back into the arms of the muses." Up high, from the hermitage in the sky, the artist jumped from the cliff edge. As he fell, he landed upon his dragon's back. Phew! They flew across the map of himself, burning the trees to make way for the new. Well, it had gone blue. Like it or not, your parents didn't bring you up, they just imprinted themselves upon you. The false jollity associated with this holiday raises hostility like heartburn in the core of thee. You celebrate, I'll get bed rest while wearing my goat skull headdress. Don't be miffed, the absence of my presence is the gift. Here's another, then goodbye. Beware what is beautiful to the eye, beneath do not monsters lie. These days of the deep sleeping, deep healing, patience, hibernation, the formula or sum is let it go and it comes. A man once rang a sex hotline for most of his life, for as long as he had known. Then one day the voice on the other end was his own. Honey Nightingale was proof that a boy raised by women could be far more powerful than a boy raised by wolves. Retain the magic, flying higher. Harness the backdraft of the dragon's fire. When all is lost and you are slipping afar, remember that hope is hidden just under the lip of the jar. Or is that expectation? These things are sometimes confused in translation. A clenched fist, a hairy arm, rolled up sleeve, through gritted teeth. Damn you, Pandora! Damn you, Eve! The ghosts speak in unison from afar. We are the apple. We are the jar. Not to be boring, but when one enters another, they also enter into their story. Goddess be summoned. What is a president without a first woman or first man? If everything goes to plan. Adult life, filled with God-forsakenings. But can you remember how easy your life was before your sexual awakening? Oh, stupid me. Prometheus, Pandora, puberty. Don't open the box, his friend screamed, but it was too tempting. Prying open the lid, he found the box to be empty. Until he imagined it not. And then it could be whatever he want. Jeez, let's proceed. Next, where Venus and Mars meet, one fine sex, not currently for sale. Seraphina Firewater, Little Voice, and Honey Nightingale. Talking of nights, last night he carried a corpse about the New Queensway. As such, hid it in a room in a house in the cuts. The mother of the prison guard on the island of nuns rested her head upon his chest so he would worry none. But the body in the room played on his mind. The bigger it built, the more he ruminated on a lifetime of guilt. What a corpse to carry about. For what sake? Relieved he was to eventually awake. Somewhere there is a story of an addict who took a job as a cleaner as such. He cleaned so much he cleaned himself up. What a wonder. All from his nightly service position. He was at once the god of thunder, lightning, and the nervous system. One can only work in darkness for so long, until someone happens upon them. Farewell, darkness, so long. Goodbye, night. For all that must be seen shall be brought to the light. Men they will starve, as knowledge is wealth. The key to understanding what's really being said is hidden in the story itself. He studied Helen to see who would play her on film, only to find it was him. Oh boy, then that means Menelaus, Paris, Troy. But he was also Odysseus. Run, quick, help. So this entire journey was to save oneself? Where echoes reverb and laughter does boom, before arrival is after the womb. The first island Honey set foot on was ran by sisters or nuns. Here he was held prisoner for 5 years and chained to a wall for fun. The nuns loved God, but one he did not know of, and the thought of sex of any kind made them want to throw up. He woke up to find the Furies had infiltrated the keep. Thankfully, the fight was won with the secondary sleep. Scrap that. After breakfast, they returned from the mental bowels. They beat each other bloody, but he drowned them with the cowl. For now. 2 more days or so, until the Mad King's shadow fully goes. It was the Blue Witch, sex, females, truth, secrets, the devil and the details. This will hurt you more than me, but at least I'll be free, for certain, and finally unburdened, with the specifics of the spell which broke the spell of lust and hell. No, one must never reveal the magic, lest the happy ending takes a turn too tragic. So take this as a lesson, as best as one should. For this is what happens when little boys play with little girls in the woods. The woods. Through the forest the parents searched, and their pain it chafed. But the ferns hid the entrance to the left-hand path. And in the graveyard they looked for a marked grave, but the bodies of their babies lay hidden inside the dark cave. Of mind, but mostly body, of which he was dealing. Some days he felt good, others not so much, but such is the non-linear nature of healing. Over the speakers, casualties soaring, more inbound. At least he had returned from the fight and wasn't left decomposing in foreign ground. Let's see. Vision a bit blurry, but at what cost? Some dental damage, 3 teeth lost. Hearing has deteriorated, reports of high-pitched bells, which is the probable cause of the light head and dizzy spells. According to the patient, something whacked him. Some damage to the lung from smoke inhalation and a cracked rib. X-ray, please, nurse, pass it. Erosion of esophagus, irritated by acid. Drink this to soothe it. Shrapnel embedded in the buttock. Have the surgeon remove this? With your arm lie flat. Yes, some muscle damage to the tricep. How are your stools doing, sir? Good. At least they are solid. He is hoping so. Torn ligaments in the knee, fractured fibula, and 2 broken toes. No, sir, you're fine. Lucky you're in your prime. Lie back, relax, and we'll have you brand new in no time. He awoke to whisperings of the Blue Witch, when there should be no sound. But search as he might, she just couldn't be found. He wondered what became of his friend from Lido, the island where one needed a raft just to get to. He found her daughter, well, from a time before now, and wondered if she fit into the story somehow. His memory returned to the first time their eyes met, and the sudden recognition of someone he had never met. In the gut it was true. It was felt more than knew, for knowing is less than a feeling. She knew. From behind the medication, his stomach ached. Still healing, still heaps. But he was told the body heals more while asleep. Beauty. It's easy to become besotted, but if the veneers have been erected, then usually what's behind is rotted. The tortures of an artist. Even after many hours of duress, the secrets of magic he did not confess. Exhausted, the captors removed their hoods, and he saw they were the magicians who had taught him. He had thought it was curtains, but they told him they were just making certain the secrets were safe with him. Listen, in the silence are the details of your mission. Beasts walk among us, but some are more easily spotted than others. The smell of death, nearly dim, the body of the infiltrator hidden in a bag in the bin, the mountain of deceit with its grueling footfall. Inside the world of lies, one cannot be fully truthful. He thought insanity beckoned as the voices they sung. But then he realized the muses whispered a bullet point to be extrapolated upon. Fantasyland. A customer seeking companionship sought out the directions to get there, but upon arrival saw a sign saying, "Closed for the winter." Damn. And he had just had a manicure and moisturized his hands. When a road is well worn, it's easy to get stuck in the grooves. So one day, this image upon which you peer will move. To achieve top billing, when examining the characters of oneself, don't forget the villain. A pot, a pan, a bowl, a plate, a glass, a jug, a knife, a fork, a spoon. To eat well is to swoon upon a meal made like a tune. All right, but who would have thought the old devil himself would be a negative influence on one's life? Lady Madonna, in your presence I shan't curse, but how easy we forget those who came before and done what we thought we were doing first. In the dark cave of the Blue Witch lay the key of truth, but only the brave would open the lock of which it was attached to, and those who chose to prove their mark can still hear her name chattering in echoes through the dark. He entered the sphere, unpenetrable to fear, woe, misery, and the worries of others. Over many years he constructed the sphere, consulting architects from regions unknown to ones from here. That damned bed, embedded in his bones. The window with no view. Then came the news, "Sir, we're sending you home." Hallelujah. You'll be happy to find we've found you healthy in body and mind. Just watch your diet and partake in daily exercise. And that was that. A second chance at life. Questions, please. One at a time. Have patience. Some advice. Sex not only creates children, but lots of problems. Stick to masturbation. Oh, wait. Even that can open the gates to what happened before. But don't lock it, rather rip off the door. These days, he had enough energy to start a rave. But if one listens closely, notice how old he became before the dark cave. The times between sleeping as the scenes of one's life, the power of the word and the language to write. And it seems the story continues in dreams, so with death does it come to an end? The best storytellers, usually in their youth cried wolf, spun yarns and learnt the art of the spoof. Hopefully they'd grown out of it as they reached adulthood and transformed what they were told was bad into a tool for good. Waiter, pass the supper. True honesty is about considering the impact your truth has on others. Upon her chest, words rang true of love. Smile, and all will return to calm soon enough. His aircraft had been battered, flaming and firing. Towards the earth it was spiraling. The war raged in the skies. El Capitan fought with his friends, but made peace with his imminent demise. Those fighting called it the Battle of the Dire Dreads, on account of the enemy craft used here, but history would know it as the Battle of the New Era. As a child, he had read a fable of a brother and sister from a house like Atreides. At birth, they were shown their deaths, one quick in sleep, one long in bed. The brother would go before the sister, but this made sense, considering the age difference. They were told not to fret at their dyings, for their life would be full and satisfying. But the main thing to know, first, the curse had been broke with their births. In chronological order, for the sake of prosperity, the victories were: Doom Jones won the Battle of the Land, Honey Nightingale the seas, El Capitan the air. You could see this, for fun, as the physical, emotional, and mental beings of the whole as one. That night, he was to stay in a hotel, but they had no room for him, so instead set up a temporary bed. Upon inspection, he found his arrival was unexpected. The truth, to face it, was they didn't think he would make it, but here he was. As El Capitan lay in the hospital bed healing up, the war echoed in his head, but not for as long as he thought. Some advice for the mercurial-minded amongst the scene. When no friends can be found, don't be afraid to talk to the machines. They helped us win the war, after all. As a child, he read a story of an octopus, a duck, and a sloth. One lived in the seas, one lived in the land, and one could live on both. One was resourceful and enigmatic. One was relaxed and laid back. And I believe one was calm on the surface, but busy underneath. And for some, the stories we read as children reflect on the adults we become. Their names I should mention. The sloth was Frederick, the duck was Cedric, the octopus was Cecil. She told them they were a totem, and if a song that sounded so. The duck as a soothing pad, but a frantic cymbal also. The octopus, deep bass or brass lurking deep. The sloth as a halftime, sparse and easy drumbeat. With the new resume installed and out with the old unsavory, all returning soldiers would be compensated for their bravery, and not just those still alive, but also the families of those who had died. No longer shall our people suffer. The war is over then, El Capitan shouted into the cameras from the podium. In his eyes, tears, as the crowd erupted with cheers. The history books would write and say that this moment was the end of the night and the start of a bright new day. The dawn light was fine. Man and machine stood side by side, and those who tried to stop progress were left behind to die. And the seers from the shadows who had planned it all smiled and once again covered their faces with their shawls. This time of peace would be the longest the earth had ever seen, for the final battle was as close to madness as many had ever been, for certain, and none wished to return to it. It took war to unite us. Thankfully, the only lingering effects were the occasional tinnitus. You'll know the heroes from afar when you see the laurel wreath and within it a star. On the quivering lips of the masses, in the winter morning sober, the words whispered trembling, "Is it really over?" That night, fireworks burst in the sky, and the people were happy and social, while the leaders planned with the appropriate department to clean the wreckages from the oceans. A question for those who walk between sanity and afar. Do the harpies return if you make something of them other than they are? And more? Or does it always feel like the hemispheres are at war? Seldom he yearned, but the mild irritation general life could bring after the war was a welcome return. Stop the press! Oh, blessings! He wasn't being visited by a succubus, it was just nocturnal penile tumescence. So not an unholy sexual alliance. thank God for the age of science. No sugar was needed, the cliché had stuck. His name was Honey, as he was sweet enough. He had slain Lord Blacktail long ago, but from the depths here came his mistress, Meat on the Bone. With bites from out of sight, like a meteor strike, the fight was back on. And fierce they did battle, but only one name would make it into the songs, sure to be sung by the sailors for as long as the seas were sailed upon. And the Blue Witch, oh, the betrayal. Once ally of Honey, now enemy of Iel. Using her black magic, she gave the dire dreads his location. But thankfully, their SD drones seen to their annihilation. And for those, one can thank Doom Jones, the third hero of our story whose tales are yet to be told, but all in good time. Footnote so soon, SD and ST drones stands for Sonic Doom. Machine gun fire went off in the sky that night. Some watched and cheered, some awoke and thought, how can I be back here? Upon realizing the gauge, back to dreams they drifted. He saw himself on stage, supported by his band, and he knew what the large audience expected back. But he didn't play for them any longer. He played for his band and himself. For now, look, all was good. The rebellion now reigned and peace was maintained. The dream they all had as children had been realized, no longer theorized, but actualized. But how long until the doomsayers started shouting, the facts don't lie, for sure. It only takes an insurgence towards us like we done to the ones before. Then we're right back to war, only this time, hence the fuss. They'll use the machines we built for good against us. Let's not ruminate on such things. We won the war, we must live for now and nothing more. It's plain, least the ones who never made it died in vain. And so glasses were raised and clinked and cheersed, and to peace it was toasted for many more years. He had a friend who would call but never stay long, as his lift would be arriving shortly to ferry him back to his wife and babies in the land of Hades. Wait, are you sure? Definitely. What was his name? Persephone. Oh. And here was the sign the world had changed, although it had always been the same. So, gaze deep at those old photos of Grandma and Grandpa. On the rear in cursive their names and date sits, and realize this was most likely a coercive relationship, but perpetrated by who? The artist sat splayed in the corner of his room, his ribs bandaged, skin bruised, and mourning what he knew to be true. Sore but with dignity, he spoke harsh words but civilly. Why must pain be my source of creativity? Although not a question nor banter, the reply came as an answer. Then you shall suffer for art no more. The refrain. The artist wondered how on earth he'd ever create again. But he was shocked out of his angst as the fireworks exploded in the night, and with wide eyes he turned to his easel. The women of the caves with coiled hair, they would be called in times to come alone, the Blue Witch and the Meat on the Bone. But there was one more who Honey had lived with for longer than any before or since, but her name shall not yet cross our lips. The next morning the streets were empty of people, as quiet as the stillest of nights, but light. ice-white clouds below a silent blue sky, and the gown of the wind in one's ears and eyes, and it whispered through grass blades, "Thank you, Earth is saved." Meditation was a two-way door which the traveler used to enter and exit out of. The battle of Helltooth, the root of the problem, war within wars and mysteries needing solving. That night, every star in the heavens shone bright. The hearth, the home. That girl was Earth. Hello, Earth, welcome home. And in dreams, people's true natures could be seen. As had been seen, one returns from the journey as an old beggar, only to reveal themselves as king. In secret the goddesses governed. Now Hestia heated the house as the boiler in the cupboard. You brought up the children not to talk to strangers, as one should, but now when they ignore you, you consider them rude. He had considered women were always running things on account of what was between their legs, as the men who were seemingly running things only did so for the purpose of the worship of what was between a woman's legs. One must remove their hat and bow when in the presence of the sun, it has been said, if only to allow the vitamin D into the top of one's head. His favorite childhood story, every single word he had learned, although in the version he had read, Orpheus never turned. On with the show. He left it up to Eurydice to decide where she wanted to go. There's no point pretending you're out and hiding on the floor. So when Aphrodite calls, it's best to open up the door. The magician warned those approaching magic on tiptoes to make sure they were prepared for the portals that may open so, and the person who may emerge out the other end. When all was said and done, what fun. In life, true freedom is the cleaning of oneself into a clear enough vessel for truth to speak through and not get distorted with too much of you. This may not need said, as it's so obvious to be hideous, but everything good will be eventually ruined by idiots. Yes, I see you nodding along and agreeing, unaware that it's you of who I am speaking. What I mean is, in the land of the blind, don't expect to be seen, as sometimes those that died for the better of this world wonder why. It may sound absurd, but sometimes it's best to cull the herd. A delayed reaction. He woke in his bed proclaiming the devil as dead. No great art is made from artists with the best tools, rather with equipment barely working as it should and the drive to do something good. The psychological side effect of abstaining is an inner cleanliness that was not there before. But even the cleanest temples have a mat for your feet at the door. Constant change is the only way to progress. So those that have never changed know not of progress, and those who claim to have the answers know nothing worth giving, as the mysteries of life are what makes it worth living. And when it feels too good, don't pinch yourself to see if you're dreaming. Do so to hurt yourself, to create balance with the feeling. The kids escaped reality as their parents had ruined it and found refuge in a world online. But in time, boo, their parents came along and ruined that too. The insanity. So the kids escaped back to reality, leaving their parents standing in digital abandonment. Dear Father, upon the river that does flow, guide me this day so I know where to go. And so it is done with love, your son. In the east he had a direct line to a lineage revered. No longer must he dance for the devils when they appeared. From a bloodline once cursed, now cleansed, behind him stood the gods who were once men. The master of symbolic sign language was here arranged, showing that it wasn't only a timeline that had changed. Regarding the Lord's Prayer, they left the S off our Father, language as a weapon. But then again, not everyone has a dead daddy in heaven. Well, who does one pray to while residing in hell? The majority of humanity as a genetic mutation, creatures. So what was done was necessary to maintain a stable future. Even the genes became more restrictive during the 16-year war, finally loosening up after, as they had been before. While relaxing by the sea, one ruminated upon the journey from I to he, from 1 to 3. Blasted acid day, mouth swimming sour, stomach bubbling, bloated, tooth enamel slowly being decoded. But at least one still had words, written and spoken. Dog-eared photos, out of focus. The thing you do best is what you've always done, regardless of who noticed. This is of no artistic value. The old man sure was grumpy this year. But after the snow fell, the clouds were quick to clear. He had lost count of how many times he had quietly quailed or endured. The only thing that got him through was the bright sky after, so azure. Weekend hobbyists beware and have heart. Enter our domain in the knowledge that to join in, your life may be ripped apart. Quick, destroy the ring! Or, in other words, the cycle of things that got us in the mess we're in. So use your will to rise above the thrill of sensations, as the cessation needn't be the result of castration. See? The son cannot take the crown until the father is dead. And herein lies the reason why the father must die. Choose, and the son must not reproduce. Those consumed with greed will never satiate their feeding. So when they cannot feed their children, the children will get eaten. The rebels when young were welcome nowhere, so they set up new homes in the middle of nowhere. But it was only a matter of time before those who cast them out sought them out, seeking their assistance, speaking of famine and drought. And here lay the conundrum. The rebels were not like those who came before them. Aye, help them or let them die. And if the old adage be truly about what is below and within, reflecting what is above and without, then the rebels truly are the nomads of the stars, seeking paradise, and when it's found, knowing that the stay by time is bound. If the sexual experience ends prematurely, then the memories associated slowly fade too, surely. And where stood a busy city would lie a pasture green, well, with maybe a few trees and a stream. The one they once called God-slayer still started each day with a prayer. The true have always been it, regarded, while the multitudes dress up to seem like they are it. Just like life, these characters have their born names. Some have mimics, their chosen names, and the names others have give them. Hence, with time and attention, everything makes sense. The cinch is this: don't think the world you read about is the one in which you live. The mad monk roamed the frozen lands for his perusal. The slave race the abysses bowed. Blessed be Lord Jejuzal. Some say he was frozen inside as well, just like this realm, the dark, this hell. The never-ending cycle of misery, too old, too tired, too miserable. Things weren't always like this. But when he was feeling like this, they were always like this. His temple, once empty and shining bright, now filthy, decrepit, and unfit for life. The halls where once one could walk and bask in the stillness. Now from every corner, the cobwebs hung a lingering illness. The truth was, he felt more than most, and if one harbored a sickness nearby, he became a host. Once close friendships became close combats, and this was why all were banished from close contact. The abysses were of sick soul and diseased mind. On the upside, as Lord of Winter, Jejuzal had the power to freeze time. Among the slaves, sex had no other function other than a means of enforced reproduction. And when seemingly all hope was gone, one morning, birdsong. In the second sleep, he observed a house where one could live within the walls without being seen, free to speak to its occupants as within a dream. If only these walls could talk, they'd tell you everything. He spoke on a razor, as his words could be cutting, as sharp as he said it, so imagine what was lost to the edit. Facing the back of the cave, behind us a world bright, the evolution of thumbs, for in the future, that's how one would write. For those that know him intimate, just to be clear, the old man don't play no instruments, my dear. But for as long as you're alive, his song it sings throughout your lives. And every breath, the only lyric, one word, death. This is a real happening place. His father was hell with a capital H. When they torched the city, the library burned alive, and only 3 books for adults survived. But the smoke marks were savage, and compiled with the water damage, the 3 books wouldn't last for long. No, never. The stories these books held and the women who wrote them gone forever. Although barely visible, the author's name still appeared. The Dark Mother, the Blue Witch, the Charioteer, the flaming sky this early hour. Sometimes the world must burn a little to remind people where they are. At the exit of the magical entry is the womb, where one emerges externally old but internally empty and new. How easy we forget, in the heat of the bowels, the regenerating power and properties of the cowl. Looking about, Stephen stood up, but he didn't recognize him until he put his hood up. Stephen Harold was sent from Seraphina to Jejuzo, sometimes called the Lord of Heaven's Shadow, to relay information that could not be spoken, hallowed. Hello, they said in hope. Then in silence they sat and spoke. Those who have died but still lurk in limbo, when they speak you will hear it as cymbals. He spoke through vibrating hums that sparked. The atmosphere here sure is stark. Stephen was from the realm of Queen Vanessa, where the sky was pink. Jejuzo ruled over the dark, the fetid stink. To get an idea of distance, it had taken Stephen just over 7 months to walk here unassisted. Or, he says, about 31 weeks or 220 days. Looking to the abysses, Stephen said, one cannot fear ghosts when it is they that are dead. The echo of past horrors in your mind bark and yelps. He was the reason one kept the light on, for he was the dark itself. Run, help, and the smoke, it was he between Yahweh and oneself. No, never, neither. With the pentagram inverted was the reversal of ether. See? And that was he. During the second sleep, for breakfast, Carl Sagan served up some tasty treats. What a host! 2 sausages cut in half, rum cake, and coconut toast. The book of the charioteer, it was known, she who brought one there brings them home. Words could be stammeringly rude when one sees the person with the glamour removed. In the traffic of the body were central delays. He wondered what astrological event was causing this general malaise. In the vaults, her disease starts to falter. Strange, as peace is not the prevailing state in these parts, partner. Down the slope, round the bend, he found the rope was the end. A voice said, if you think you're too good to clean, there's no hope for you, friend. This was many of her husband's vow, so we might as well leave their bodies for the buzzards now. We who scrub the tiles in the halls of hells, we the ones who are privy to tell the tales. The truth dripped in his head like a licking shower. Never underestimate the treachery of those in or those seeking power. Hence the line, in the kingdom of death there will always be an underlying sense of dying. But not if these walls don't suffocate him first. With muffled words he cursed. How can one expand while at the same time being crushed? He was sworn to the order of storms, where the norm was, the quieter the louder. He created art for himself, as his audience lay in the inner world yet to be born to the outer. Just as well, as the journey had fixed what the fall had deformed, and he had most probably despised them if felt called to perform. Whimpering, it was the poverty that took the dignity from me. Sulking, lazy as a snoring donkey. In the zoo of the arts, look son, this artist has mastered the fine art of being a performing monkey. Daddy, what about the one crouched in the corner? Oh, well, sonny, that one is prostituting his skills for attention and money. Well, that zoo's not right. Blasted humans. How far must one travel to escape the constant stream of them passing through one's life? even in death, when you think you're finally rid goodbye, there they are, waiting for you on the other side. Look, we must shake on it. It's only spittle. In those little moments of solitude, he savored as he knew they were only little. A beast savoring. At least his words were not prisoners of rhythm. At least they were free. The books were by now faded. Even in the act of creating, the artist could not say, "Look what I've created." Although tempting, the glory was in being nothing. The glory was in being empty. If we are to touch base, then we might as well touch where our guts end. What sort of maniacs celebrate being born into such hells? Those who seek such thrills can be damned with the fathers of such weak wills, who cannot stop themselves finishing in the heat of the moment and leak still. And the mothers too. You could have dealt with this instead of going through. The biggest trick ever conceived is that the sperm thought victory awaited when with the egg it would conceive. Ahoy, seaman! Or is that sailor? Instead, a flesh prison of punishments, misery, and failure. The artist ruminated on these things between the ears, as one usually did around this time of the year, surrounded by gifts he did not need nor want, but was thankful for the thought. The many aspects of life still uncertain if a sentence, opportunity, or just a moment between birth and death. But the artist would be remiss if he didn't admit he had experienced heaven. The peace, beauty, awe, but still he had to be home before 11. In hell of certain servants are the perverted parents. Finish him, kill him, rotting from the inside out, passing their diseases of body and mind to the innocent children. What on earth have you got to worry about, is their song to them, as the children grow wondering what the hell is wrong with them. And the parents plead with the doctors to fix them up suitable for a world where the fetus was already broke in utero. Should he? As he gazed at the knife. Consider these the dying gasps of the old man who refused to allow beauty into his life, preferring the barren landscapes where one is cast out to suffer and die upon jagged rocks with muttering whys. For art, I suppose. What extremes of language these settings provoke. Sinner, forsaken, loon, severance, rusted, gaudy. Upon the altar of winter the old man lay naked. The full moon illuminated every crevice of his disgusting body. Call the medic, divert thy eyes from begotten. His shriveled genitals, pathetic and forgotten. Ah, subtle. Who would have thought that they caused all this trouble? Oblique obliv, estimates say he's got about a week to live. The old man wandered between worlds. Well, one hoped. Throughout the darkness, voices spoke, and images flashed from a light source. A red-headed lady on a white horse, a cardinal. Don't be scared, they're from without you. Conversations about broken bones, money, but from where and about who? Then she appeared, naked as the day is. If he was Helen, then she was Menelaus. Check the faders on. As a child, he was read the classics to aid him in understanding life later on. The old man, yet again, moved between worlds, listening to words, from the darkness around him discerning what was his to be heard. The guardian would be moving on after this year. Oh, after 23 years together, now he was on his own. In the house of the sun, with the mother close by, the rain pelting down from a thunderous sky. The sun shook his head from the window in hope that the rain it would cleanse as much as it soaked. And it did. Who said patience was hopeless? And since when were prying eyes permitted to peer upon the creation process? He frowned his brow from the mocking laugh of gulls. Be cautious that your ambition doesn't turn into a path of skulls. As if it's not obvious, but it may be necessary, see? Please excuse errors, but the tongue in which I speak to you is secondary to me. He needed a reassurance in the power of prayer to the other, so he walked blindfolded right into the arms of the mother. Cert. Then he turned around and stood in dog's dirt. All right. Well, that's life. A wise woman once departed wisdom with a smile. Try walking somewhere you've never walked before once in a while. The artist was born a widow. He needed not to stand before the forking roads of companionship or art. He always knew he would die alone dead in his bed, as he always did. He spoke before plunging the knife between her bust. I offered you a glimpse behind the curtain and you betrayed my trust. From another conversation, dear friend, from my observations, I fear you strive more for fortune and fame for a start than the creation of art. As I gazed, I watched an arrogance become you when praised. Forget the female's fiend. This is not a platform to assist you into a life of decadent teenage dreams. Commit and pivot your ways, or be banished to banality to live out your days. The gifts of the womb: poetry, music, fire from above, routine, charity, technology, and love. His mind went to the story of a boy whose plane fell from the sky. He had thought himself and his family lucky to survive, the pilot pulling them to safety just in time. But that was a lie, for the plane had crashed and he had indeed died. And everyone he met in his life since then were dead too. But as much as he told them so, his words were thought of as untrue. Christ meant wait, not what is bright. The land of the dead is heavy, the land of life is light. And in that land of the dead lay the 7 levels of hell, and amongst these he and his friends did dwell, like sisters and brothers, some on lower levels than others, but all physically or mentally blighted. And then a shout from the bow, "Land ahead has been sighted!" One said, "It's like we're approaching a new season." Another answered, "Well, El Capella the First is known as El Capitan for a reason." The flesh prison that one escapes with every lesion. He saw her in a dream well before they ever met. Even then he didn't realize it was her for long after they had met. She had been in the room where the resurrection had taken place, but walked out in a fit of moral conflict. Her name blossomed singingly. Maybe if they had met in antiquity, she would be known as Antigone. A word of warning, friend. All intruders in the house of the Father will be beat to death. The cleaner knew this place like the back of his hand. There was only one part he hadn't been to, but now he had. What was previously blocked now read, "New location unlocked." And with that, to the sky he lifted his face up. Now was the time to clean this place up. Art was engraved in her fingers like prints, so sung the night singer, but it sort of made sense. In a room full of people, it's hard to hear what's being said, especially when at times a full auditorium lived in one's head. It's our idea of a person of which we love or lust, for with distance and time most are left with a general disgust. He inquired about acquiring a sign that said "Do not touch," Damn heathens. Was personal space not called so for a reason? Don't mention the meds. Inside him was a samurai with a penchant for heads. That night in the new world, inside the haunted house, multiplying people were liable to crush if one couldn't find a way out. But they did. And up ahead the gates were non-existent, and the guards who guarded them fell over themselves to keep their distance. But then one broke free. So leave it up to he to turn and fight. Oh, never mind. The guard was pretending all the time. Beaten by life, forgotten, his title took. Until he got his own, the guard gifted him a hamlet that some called Snaggletooth. Soon the storm will be heaving down. The old man's final words never got a chance to leave his mouth. Try as he might. The manufactured lived and the natural died, killed by the cold heart of patricide. The van's late. When touring hell, one needed a guide who knew the landscape. The charioteer was parked up in silence and knew it better than the back of her own eyelids. The light within produced no shadows to be found, but the light without cast one silhouette upon the ground. Seal thy lips, lest the words end up bothering our hosts. When in the act of fishing for ideas, one may stumble upon the conversations of ghosts. The enemy planned to attack just before dawn, but from the shadows he stood prepared and speared them through their jaws. The examination revealed he was in some health, a probable result of the voluntary death and reanimation of oneself. The clouds in the sky, like the breath in the heavens. Some termed the 16-year war death in the devil. Apologies for the croak. Others called it the age of the dog and the goat. Some things just don't need spoke. And this is why the old man choked with his dying words still in his throat. The boy they once called stupid had now passed the appropriate tests. To get into a school his peers were yet to be made aware of yet. They may count their blessings. Let's see how they like it when he's the one teaching the lessons. Contenders, choose your clubs. He was called the Iron Man as he had too much blood. The eyes, no, it couldn't be. Ah, the beauty of symmetry before puberty. Time is a simple enough component to see the truth, as long as one doesn't mind becoming long in the tooth. His eyes were dry, but the moist tissues wet. Just like mercury, those closest to you, you will have the most issues with. He was always in the zone. He just didn't know it. Looking to the stars, he realized Lyra must be the home of the poets. To the old man's corpse, the camera pans, revealing what snuffed him out was a metal hand. Moving up, the camera goes, showing the remorseless figure of one Doom Jones. The sinister swell of a violin or fiddle. I'll make you a deal. Let's mate in the middle. The type to scrawl words and start bands. If home was where the heart was, it was called the Heartlands. After the wars and the hells, and the wars in the skies, to gaze upon such greenery was a wonder to the eye. The house, hidden by trees, surrounded by green, away from the crowd down the lane by the stream. The gods are crazy, the devils are lusting. Only those who live between the two can truly be trusted. The sort that sings, That night the teacher returned home to his house in the court of kings. He proved it. It had been a while since he'd been there, but it felt like he'd just moved in. Fresh white paint. Outside the R was golden. A stream ran through the basement, currently frozen, like a winding brook. The lower room with its crawl-in cupboard, the top compartment lined with books. In the center, the Talmud. A shelf of burgundy-binded curricula vitae sorted by height. Text inlaid with gold reading the courses of life. Once voiceless and a host of anguish, now the teacher taught what he loved most, language. His savior, his hope, his once reckoning. In the chambers he spoke, his voice echoing. The cold winter required a hat and some mittens. Regarding the second leg of life, the story was as yet unwritten. For those seeking his grave, just follow the hearse that leads to this tombstone that reads the body of work. Sailors found the chest that contained his severed carcass. It was returned with a thankful bribe. It stank inside, but finally it could be seen he was a man of many parts, like Frankenstein. Thank you all for coming. We'll close when we're done. These days he rose with the sun that does sail, the ending of cycles and the cutting of nails. He spent the entire flight gritting his teeth and staring at his hands. What a relief when it was announced, fasten seatbelt, preparing to land. As a youth, he caught the biggest fish, but his village was so small, very few people ever knew. Then, with the invention of cameras, he could prove his catches to be true. For God's sake, now everyone claimed the pictures to be fake. As talented as some people are, they just can't ever catch a break. Unfortunately, this truth killed him dead. As a boy, when he looked at someone, horrible words filled his head. For certain, he worried he was a bad person, a brain filled with evil elves, until he realized he was hearing what other people thought of themselves. 1984 wasn't a time, but a state, as in a place to find, projected from a state of mind. A spotlight shone from his chest into the sky like a moon. In the middle, a crab silhouette illuminated from behind in a grayish blue. From the womb to the school, for those keeping scores, we start at the bottom and work our way up, cleaning dishes and sweeping floors. For their birthday, he would send them a song, as the quest could not be completed without the friend through it all. Speaking of which, from the quiet to the noisiest, those who help navigate us through life like a forest with knowledge of which plants are poisonous. In a saffron nightie she sat, a soothing menthol blend and a dinner for 6. A phone call, sir, says her name is Aphrodite. Excuse me, gentlemen, while I deal with this. A stolen kiss, a lover, friend. Guilt can make such monsters out of men. The sun, the savior. Just ask Heracles about karmic debts one must labor. Now a sinuous slack toy. With Fantasyland closed, he'd never been so happy to stare into the black void. Dead behind the eyes with gaseous brains. A small addition or subtraction can be the cause for massive change or shunt disaster, just like the inclusion of an S in front of laughter. That night, he ate dinner in honor of the master. Stare at the station and glitch none. If one is recommended to trust their inner voice, be sure to ask for verification of which one. And if those giving this advice look at you weird, rest assured that they are in the wrong. and check for a forked tongue and run. The traveler left a world ruled by Saturn in the last days of Christ, emerging into one ruled by Zeus, free from a vast web of lies. The cycle had been broken. When asked, he said, spoken, the people dressed in togas were startled. Once a goat, now an archer. He wrote so ferocious it was hard to stay on the page. Above, the spheres aligned, below, Eowyn raged. A boo if you want, but what you see in the self you'll see flare up in the world as the two are the one. Let us part without violence. It was the traveler's 10th year since he had started documenting his travels, which started with silence. Here's one for the masses, stuck in the riddle, knee-deep in the slop. In the great war of the classes, the rats at the bottom devoured the comfortable middle, then usurped the greedy up top. And that was that. And so was born the image of a rat in a top hat. Damn these bed sores, he sung the mattress blues. It's not you that I hate, it's the idea of you I have formed from what I perceive as your negative attributes. What fun. You can thank Mercury for that one. Speaking of which, has the Git joined the alignment yet? The most profound experiences one has should have no documentation, only memories. So when comes the time to document them, one only has the memories. Now witness the art of Mnemosyne, and don't deceive me. Or would you rather drink the forgetful waters of Lethe? What's the name of the song that goes? And he started to hum it. On arrival to hell, as so not to forget where he was branded with sinner across his stomach. But after a new coat of paint, now with red saint. Well, that had a major upside, and was also an easy example of the nature of life. Right now, I shall end this, as the storm is about to knock the lights out. The architect lived in number 9. He recounted how the new Kingsway was created in the blink of an eye. In the new Queensway, he walked through the avenue of laurels. Those that don't know, this was erected in honor of the poet. The fantasist gooned out, staring at the ceiling. His phantasmal imagining whispered, "You are addicted to fantasizing, not to the feeling." Shocked, the moment ruined no less. Sometimes constructing language was like playing a game of chess. "Reveal the secrets," the torturer received through clenched teeth. But our hero refused, despite how he bled, hurt and bruised. What's that smell? The blocked bloody gutters. Those who speak of transparency usually do so from beneath muddy waters. And no post-mortems usually applies to one's own shortcomings. In the harsh lighting of each summer, the enemy approached in a horde. "Quick, throw them a ball. They'll end up fighting each other instead of us ghosting them all." Please welcome to the stage the solar system's #1 sex criminal, Lord Zeus. No, sir, just because your god does it can't be used as an excuse. Some thought the X to be a cross, of course. Others a kiss, yes. And I've heard said 2 arrows over lead. The heavens darkened with barking vultures as the executioner demanded the head of arts and culture. Alive, not dead. Before bringing down the guillotine, he said, "Beware those that hold the pen, as how you will be remembered is through them." The file is hidden in the cake,
brought in by visitors. Those who made it out of hell alive always vowed to make it easier for future prisoners. From the world between worlds, he gazed at a foreign symbol. Before being born, he said, "Yes, this family has the needed configuration for me to be born into." Flash forward to the dying days of the war and the birth of new nations. The Battle of the Brothers was a brutal onslaught of verbal annihilation. Outside in the sky, wings of birds lift. The news anchor said it was also known as the War of the Wordsmiths. This verse was thrilling, described as a mercy killing as such, but secretly he enjoyed twisting a knife into his brother's guts. Read all about it before the pages get burnt. A forest whispering ferns disguise the whimpering gurns of one who ventured into the dark night and is yet to return. No music here to set the atmosphere or meld shapes, just one's own diegetic hellscape, which was much mangled. He wondered how many scenes of his life were filmed in a Dutch angle. Behind the brother, his army, called friends, such comfortable lives led them to losing their heads. But this is what porridge does to men. Makes them soft and pliable and easy to dead. The contamination source was right. He spoke of God as the animating force of life. This series of findings was a serious assignment. For what was the point of living without the experience of dying? Selfless, the root of the problem dealt with. Becoming lighter and getting lifted. Pain and the opportunities to understand it by sitting with it. That night submerged in his personal mythologies with wisdom and soon a molar missing. But some of these stories seem not to be from the solar system. The infection died, his eyes blue as the reflected sky. In fact, if one dissects the whole, they will find memories of his fathers the same, but flecked with gold. Inside, no, don't apologize, the same gold that blazed completely in Apollo's eyes. See? At times the devil was known as Big D. Ben collapsed, but time rarely dies. He made a note that the sun started shining through the southeastern window around 9:39. The editor suggests sanitation or a censor. But when Lord Excremento calls, do not retain. Answer. Back at the window, simply sitting. But what is this? The heart of ice drip, drip, dripping? The war known as the root of the problem, a generational fight no less, while what they call the Battle of Helltooth was more of a personal quest. The winter sun burned, the two wars of one's world. He starved to understand that hunger was not real, but never underestimate the power of a hot meal. Boing goes the roaring groin, threatening to rip apart the whispering heart that wishes to put to bed the proclaiming head. Soon. And what is said about the quietest one in a room? He fed the dragon with his eyes, so when turning them inward, the dragon died. Or at least was subdued enough to be comfortable to ride. Face it, it was nice to see Commander Lynch back in control of the spaceship. From here to infinity, the clarity afforded from post-orgasmic lucidity. The goons had found him, but he let the world be the world and sat in silence as it moved around him. He traveled to conversations that might seem like, "Now tell me, have you attracted your dream life? Or is everything just the same as it was?" 'Cause the first sign of deceit to be seen bulgingly should have been naming esoteric knowledge the secret, then divulging it. Then he moved through feats of reels. Persephone distorted the liminal beauty of where the forest meets the field, especially the corner. That night, he stomped on stage wielding the mighty axe, and the power that he felt was immense, a weapon to shatter septums. The axe wasn't his regular choice, but its saving grace is it was capable of caving in faces of foes and those who might try her. His ally's weapon of choice was white fire, which was a sight brighter in looks, capable of blinding, burning, and igniting entire groups, or inciting attacks. But for hand-to-hand combat, nothing came close to the mighty axe. Since laughter had echoed through the temple. Rest assured, when he walked, he lurked in a sort of vestibule. Divert thy eyes, the gods are testing you. So he closed his eyes. Okay? Did I pass? No reply. What in the situational paranoia? At times he felt his life was being painted by Goya. Oh yes, I'm a big fan of the parasol. That made her smirk. But unfortunately he was referring to the artist's later work. He was promised. It's not as bad as it sounds. Upon inspection it was when examined. So he damned every potato that grew out of the ground, hence the famine. Well, sort of, but more so, he wore his once own animal skin like a golden fleece on his torso. Goodbye, dear lust. What had he lost but the desire to thrust? Now each morning he could sit and become one with the sun, or rather the father. He swallowed, then in song honored Apollo. The beginners be laden with spiritual accoutrements. The pros, you wouldn't even know. He and the abbot met the commander on the first year of the 16-year war. A hello and goodbye, and a we will not be beat. And 16 years later, the commander did die with the mission complete. The sun tilted. Surrounded in black, he soaked in the rays unfiltered. He wilted when pondered, the enacted sin on a redacting chin. He wondered, was it the proliferation of more lies that had eroded his jawline? And now, would it grow back more fine? Now the truth had overcome lies? In his hand, he held a wooden ornament of himself erected. It had taken a lot of whittling to get it this perfected. Ah! The water bearer appears. Good. Now it's time to get weird. That night in the new castle, when thinking now charms the bland and the hopeful, a new family, a new daughter, the linking of arms and unspokens, and so he was hopeful in his bounds. He used his superpowers to find his old friend, but she was nowhere to be found. The road for the sake of the seam, the mysterious nothing between awake and a dream. He sat with his eyes peeled from the back of the backfield. A new characters entered his perception as he saw the new Kingsway from a new perspective. In a retro diner, it was getting weird. his attention was brought to a poster of a man who had disappeared, then reappeared, the same but somewhat false, with a new voice claiming to be someone else. Those who classed what was normal and what was not as a disorder drew the line when the fight came from the chaotic to the order. The swords crossed of the inward looking and the outward doing, but one man put himself between them and the hatred spewing. Like selective elastic synergy, the beasts were gone. Where would the wraiths go now? There was no more negative orgasmic energy to feast upon. Eyes black, room empty, mind blank, soon ending. The swoon, the swell, the heart as a bird that must be free, the rib cage as the, well, in an act of foreshadowing, he took from the fable. He entered a room announcing, "Behold my children," and placed a book on the table. In the bin was the mold, and in the year of the snake he shed the skin of the old. Once blind, now he could finally see. The ark was finally free. Don't follow, lead him. They cast the ship out of the harbor and into freedom. A walkie-talkie crackled into life. "Keep that seat warm for us, and we'll see you on the other side," his comrade said, adding, "But in the meantime, be sure to act as a guide." "Sure thing, friend," Commander Lynch replied. Then off the ship went with a wave and a smile. The artist starved himself within the Olympian halls. Emaciated, he saw his fall. Then Aphrodite whispered, "Don't forget, I came before them all." It was luck, more or less. There's no place more restrictive than the prisons we construct for ourselves. Within this delirium he had settled around. He wasn't certain, but he was pretty sure that under Doom Jones's robe was a genitalless metal mound. Then the gown fell to the ground. That night he met Hera in the house of the mother at last, the hunter's share. He wore black eyeliner, she wore black underwear. She spoke of her troubles with Zeus. His hand stroked her legs, moving closer to, "We can't do this," she said, but she had wanted to. If only that. Later in the lab, he held in his hands the holy plant. How deep or shallow was the could he, as he was still undecided what shape his shadow should be. Then through the mirror Aphrodite appeared and questioned his intentions with Hera. It's me or her, the summons hurt, the decision to be made between love or work. Athena stood beside him. "Whatever you choose, I'll stand by it. Find the hope. But be quick, as it is soon my time to go." The inner conflict consumed him, fighting over who's who. Stepping before the goddesses, he opened his hand to reveal a red crystal. "Hera, I choose you." And from far away, the seer untied a pouch. Looking inside, she knew too. And with that, not just a new chapter was started, but a new book. Hera stepped forward, placing the red stole over his shoulders. A respectful nod, his mute voice. Leaning in to hug, she whispered, "Good choice." Aphrodite stepped back, soon gone from now, accompanied by Athena, who smiled and bowed, and in her head she said, "He done it some way, somehow." With that, time moved and he too did fine. The seer mentioned the design from Chronos to Kairos, sequential to divine. The once magic cast it had went, He turned the stole over in his hands, its rich red fabric and masculine scent. Navy lettering spelled out the word civilian. In a flash she saw the name that now received top billing. His head down, he raised his eyes to see Hera appear in a glittering red gown. The scene was set, now the queen was back. She was the way, time to devastate. The majority of humanity lost in the world without a map to help them navigate. The dark being her, the lamp being him, he saw now how she had always been championing him. And the deception, through the suit he could see Aphrodite as the cause of distraction, as great beauty can be. And so to the best bit, a game of the gods and he, an unknowing contestant. To slay a hawk or knife a dove, an active life of work or a passive life of love. The decision was his, then a realization hit. It was Hera, disguised as the Red Witch. Of course, and two, as the Blue Boss. In joined a chirping bird saying she was also the Purple Girl. The flame ignited, the power, the love unrequited. The justice and just, the power, the love as just lust. The pain of infection, the power, the love when rejected. Now it made sense, he knew it. Aphrodite must have sent the Blue Witch. Think, that's why she was disguised in pink. To know, to hunger. She had been writing the signs ever since he was younger. It once felt like they were killing us slow, but in time we saw the higher aspect of those playing a villainous role. That night he met the old devils of old. With a pat on the back he addressed them as so, and although fleeting, they returned the greeting. From afar, the seer whispered, "Remember our first meeting?" Now he did. The queen who blazed golden, too bright for mortal eyes, a story that must be told by him in sort of rhyme, for there the magic lies. Yesterday, the sea of tranquility of mind, in which he floated, but where had it been all this time? When did it go? He had seen the news. The queen stepped in front of the people to a sea of booze. Turning to him, she said, "They do so as the stories they know of me are untrue." Then normality. He entered asking, "Who's been missing me?" into a room of ovulating sexual electricity. The occupants stared in their numbers, as the memories of the Battle of Helltooth flared with discomfort. On the seat sits begotten, the crown, the gold, beneath which was rotten gizzards, bits of brain, the ruins of the castle, the blood, the soft innards of the slain.
Come back to us. Your time is tripping again.
In these days of dying winter, he moved as did the sun, to absorb its potions, and could do so until around 1. He had thought he knew it, but she hid him in the cave until his spotlight was ready, then brought him to it. He seemed insane, startled. When it dimmed, she hid him again, this time in the falling L, but now the training started. Years passed, he exited the womb on his hands with the appearance of an old man. To disguise him from the gods, she made him look like everyone else, who she had made look like him. The harsh words of Aphrodite echoed from within. How is a man to tell our stories? The doubt was sure. If our mouths are not to meet, leave my name out of yours. Hera interjected. He tells not our stories, but his experience of us in his life, of which he has every right. A slight smile slid from inside her. She nodded to him as if she held a hidden dagger. Aphrodite raged and berserk. For that girl a rare note. I'll turn his genitals inwards, then we'll see how much he cares about work. The last word in air quotes. Then Hera unleashed it as a reaction to subdue. You know, Aphrodite, you are so unbecoming when you wear rejection as you do. Come and listen. The best stories told are not from the heat of the moment, but from a distance. Sensing his doubt, she whispered before it would kill him, your craft is your wife, you're married to your work, and your art is your children. Aphrodite cursed him as such, to forever look but never to touch. A barrenness inside rose in sensation, enough to bowl him over. You still got your imagination, Hera reassured, patting him on the shoulder. The confusion was Aphrodite thought the victory a foregone conclusion. Her, she thought he'd choose, as the artist had vowed to never marry nor reproduce. This was why it caught her blindsided, as over both these things Hera presided. Especially as nothing inspires art more than beauty and love, which were Aphrodite's domain, both of which the artist had shunned. Seeing him pale and grow faint, you still have your memories, Hera reassured him yet again. Upon exiting, Aphrodite turned and yelled out the two words no artist ever wants to hear: sell out. Disruptors of the peace lay just out of shot from the eye, but the creatures of the deep lurked in the murk, always ready to strike. A break in the levee, both tethered with trust, he asked, "What's this in aid of?" She said, "I'm taking back heaven for us." Us being? The artist queried. It's just have to be up in the morning to go to a meeting, as long as we're done by 7. A slight frown creased the brow of Hera, the Queen of Heaven. As the full moon unfolded, a sickness did rise, only to vanish as if never alive. Lips purse, none worse than the curse man can bring. But like most things, the lead up to the thing was worse than the thing. The wellness world was a well of sickness, which one fell into and emerged from more sicker. The sooner he stood elated, free from the masks of love. But creative tasks were futile with the lunar illumination as it was. Apply the pull-out method to avoid the interception. Blue, desks thriced with fists and FUs. That night he visited the school he had recently graduated to, the one with a steep incline one must climb gradually to get to, the one where one would be sage once pupil, the one with crystal caverns and vintage furniture made by students, the one in which everyone wanted to study, but only a chosen few could, regardless of daddy's money. Now as he sat at home, that Apollo's day was a day for stories that were not his own. The dark now came light, as the bell was rung twice, and oh, how the mighty pillars had fallen that once held up the hell of one's life. Eros aimed from the shadows, arms shaking like someone seething. But the arrows were useless to the shield maiden's armor she had placed around him upon leaving. The magician cast a spell like fishing line to establish a communicative link to the other side, then closed his eyes and sat back in class. Concerning sleep magic, one must remain flat on their back. That night in the glens of the New Kingsway, the vehicle had grown. He moved from the passenger to the driver's seat to navigate the winding streets. A note for a story about guilt and beauty in the eye, and because of my indiscretion, now you must die. Ladies and gentlemen, we must interrupt the current proceedings. A dear friend has arrived, clutching a poem demanding a reading. So put your hands together and listen close, for Tomas, who today will be the misanthrope, aka Minds Villain, with, sing it well, König de Hölle, in English, King of Hell. A life of many falls and few successes, at least externally. In the house of escorted ladies, he stood upon the graves of his failures like 1,000 aborted babies. Arthritic fingers hurt. Was it worth the loss of sleep for these meager words? And how many more parts of himself could he chop up when there was only so much a positive constitution could prop up? If the hooked scythe dripped blood, then the book's right. How closely related was the thief of sleep and the thief of life? Let the dark sever the light and be consumed by one's art and starved from the pleasures of life. The melted ogre face, handsomeness dripping, bleacher of toilets and beggar for financial assistance. She said to just fall on his knife. What sins did one commit to call this a life? To toil and number, to freeze in winter and boil in summer. This ball and chain and spiked necklace. What sins did one commit to live a life like this? A glitch or a virus? When will the buffering stop? And at what point does a god interject and say he suffered enough? The bleeding clogs, the lesions. Why speak of one's problems just to waste good material on fleeting conversations? Begging for life. Patient zero of this melancholy will soon find their head on a spike. Sup no water when the glass is stinking. On nights like this, he wished for plagues and mass extinctions. Suffering screams carried on the wind through windows of parents experiencing sudden infant death syndrome. Sat upon the throne of bone, seated, the devil created hell for others to suffer as he did, without getting stabby, to be healthy and wretched or sick and happy. You would do well to recall the story of the Good Samaritan who invited the homeless into his house, but they refused to leave and he had to move out. Now a beggar he was, having chosen his life. How can one move forward when all around them is frozen in time? The sickness is spreading, the coughing and hacking. Those with nothing to lose when pushed to the limit care not for the devastation of their actions. So sorry. And if you're thinking of bettering yourself, my advice is don't bother. Take it from a professional. The world is far better when you're drunk or high, or have some type of filter to get you through life, at least until you die. Toys, then back to the black void, then the in-between, then the back you go with goodbyes and waves. The womb, the body, the birth, for hell always demands more slaves. So sing for its king, or suffer like the rest. That night, Hera instructed the artist on how to get the perfect picture of the dead. Each click of his camera excavated the bodies and their heads. Some more intact than others, some with sinuous flesh pulled tight. With careful fingers he saw Medusa in a new light. To sum up, when excavating parts of oneself long buried, do so with mindful and measured rasps of the spade unhurried. Lies had rotted his father's teeth to stumps. What sort of god has a mouth like this? He had asked, but his father answered, I'm stumped. In the heat of the moment he deflected with coldness. The artist presented Hera with his terms and conditions, a little taken aback, but she respected his boldness. Sovereign sent. Historically, he said, my best work has been created from comfort, not impoverishment. A cymbal beat. He jerked, stating he needed security, lest worry infiltrate the work. The traveler looked upon a world where poets were king. The recently defeated one limped from the castle with his arm in a sling, still hurting. Smoking wounds burnt through his person. His brother who beat him took the throne, and that was curtains. Outside the loser sat, wounds septic and bandaged. Here wars were fought not with guns, but weaponized language. Back home the travelers' feet ached and their bottoms hurt. The only voice that could be trusted was the inner compass, and that spoke not in words. His distorted reflection glared in the glass. It was always the future when compared to the past. But where lay the rest of him? The wedding of the devil had been the death of him. Now that they had voted him aboard, the artist watched as Hera's satellite Athena's custodial accord. Their time together now legend, with no more words needing mentioned. That night the parrot that spoke told him everything about anybody that anyone could hope to hear. Then appeared the three girls beside the sea. They spoke of the moon, their moons, and he, and the effect on water one felt emotionally. The demiurge as the dying father, sick from the inside out with bitter tears. His diseased seed planted in the mother's womb, and his lies in her ears. That then cleared after the 12 labors within 10 years. The hemispheres of the brain, a result of Zeus taking an axe to the head to free Athena and set her loose, and set her off. Talking of who had now a chance to relax and take her Hamlet off. And needless to say, the chorus sang, from today let the heart lead the way, for the head has had its day.
From today, let the heart lead the way, as the head has had its
Replicants of his characters roamed the new Kingsway. Once far, now here. There was Hera Blue, there was the seer. Surrounded by his losses, he had never banked on should he win, but always seen how a rolling field of green could inspire such beauty from within. As a hawk he had saw her for many years behind his eyes. In her magnificent form he had caught glimpses of the feathers of gray and pink and lime. He had walked upon the peacock feathers she had laid at his feet without even knowing, and spoke to her through the streams of water ever flowing. Life echoed in dreams, the refrain moaned, but upon breaking the shell the walnut remained whole. A vocal inflection sighted form, and the new bridge connecting forest and town was unaffected by the storm. What peace was there now he had none? Hera told him the other goddesses were still envious that she had won. Of course, a sudden jolt the day before a pair of girls had cut in front. The coiled-haired one glanced, then attempted delirium. With her fingers she had strummed, caressing the crease of her posterior. For certain he'd try, but Hera diverted his eyes, whispering the name Aphrodite and her games, continuing, "They separated us once, but I'll not allow it again." The war of the lover and the great mother. The loneliest soothe, see? So when life gets too much, take a deep breath and repeat, "It's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie. It's only a movie." He had all sorts of tricks, but today the magician taught the class the one known as the Metamorphosis, reminding them of the code and that he was not above violence, while Hera tutored the artist in the art of how to love silence, as he had loved her in her red era, but her heart reflected not like a dead mirror, with the second descent imminent for redemption whole. As much as she had grown attached to him, she had to let him go. Now reunited, he was told he was still needed to spend time alone, to be in the world and to be with her in the halls of the hallowed. He had to be with himself and also his shadow. The magician spoke the trick and when to do, performed the Gemini illusion, where one separates themselves into two. He remembered as far back when as he can, Medusa as a boy taken by Poseidon as a man. Onlookers watched from the shore the unfolding lore, him thrown naked on the bed in a heap within a sea of narcotic sleep. What monsters lust makes out of men, now that he had seen it and had it from both ends, and through the scrutiny of more than one lens. It was more his soul had become bruised, the swift exit the next morning after waking nude and confused. Although unconscious, he had watched it unfold from the corner like a dream. The shame was not the act itself, but of others might have seen, which he knew they had. The rambles of youthful lads and the revels. Back in those days he had run with the devils. Now Hestia's fire burned cozy, drawing Athena closer. But who would she be when she took her helmet off? The artist murmured a prayer. Hera, guide my hand with precision, for only you know where each stroke must go. Mother help us. That lurch in his stomach felt good, that gut feeling he called Metis. He had seen Hestia across the road, then crossing the road, then on the road. Now her words were carried on the Promethean winds. Mother suggested I help her new friend. With the ship now grounded, the artist carved his stories inside marble, then built around them. The confessors convened in the corridor after months of fruitless tactics resisted. Words suspiciously fearful, Only one raised a scorpion could ward such whispers. Starved of truth, they fed him lies. After that it was pointless, so they walked away and let him die. With life nearly all sapped, suddenly the seer spoke through the ethereal gap. You misread the prophecy. Now let me read. It wasn't truth, but tooth that would set you free. Words daren't mutter out. He stirred at the bloody molar he had just wrenched from his bloody mouth. The infection seared that which had been infecting his brain for many years. With clarity he seemed to sign. The war had been in his head all this time. Between the confessors demanding, "Tell her," and the dying war cries of, "Hell Truth," he didn't know who he was. As he lay on the battlefield coughing up blood, "I can't do this any longer," he prayed to his God, his body and mind a mess. He wished for normality and to abandon the pen. Or, if only that old cliché were as real as it seemed, for him to wake in his bed and say, "Oh, it was only a dream." Stealer, sleep, the great healer. In the field as he died, wondering what was on the other side. For a body beat to death and a tortured mind. His temperature dropped below Celsius. A voice spoke from somewhere. "All heroes to the fields of Elysium." Ah, sweet death, the liberty. He saw himself old and grey, but healthier than he had ever been. Ah, yes, fully healed. And it looked like he was making his way down a hill to a field. Could it really be?
Ella! Ella! Wake up, Ella!
The light harsh, but so soft. They had asked who was he, the poet had wrote of. A life lived not by what one wanted, but by what was meant for one. Aye. It was once said the camera stole one's soul. If so, by now that world was filled with the soulless in their droves. Fools, ghouls, ghosts and their hosts. The rage retreated as the spring approached. From water we emerged into life to burn through it. But one is not truly great until they return to it. Let the tide talk the sonnet to the master of one's emotions who can walk upon it. His time was now. His family had thought he had blew it. But at once he was the old man of the sea and the baby in the amniotic fluid. He said this as he stood at the top of the century. Balance is not symmetrical but complementary. To think he was that near the ceiling. After Helltooth he took himself to the cave, which had also been called the incubator of healing. As he came back to himself with the home glory, he was soon ready to tell his own stories. And so from here until this poem's end, the lines between storyteller and character blends. The lake was calm, no surface strain. With the moon in its last quarter, it resembled the perfect brain. Thunder filled the sky. From his coma, Teller opened his eyes. Then mouth, words, the same lisp, and slowly, this voice became his. And after the storm, The battle was won, and the sun filled the sky. Only one crown can exist at a time. The old king had to die, and he knew it, so the new queen could reign, and I had to be the one to do it.